morning I'm going to start off by sharing the elements of an elevator speech. And I'm going to use my elevator speech as an example. We need a strong opener. Then we need the body of the speech, which will contain proof of our opener. And then we're going to close the speech with an action statement. We're going to ask a question. Good morning, my name is Les Segarnik. I'm a volunteer and strategic advisor to people in job transition. I can summarize what I do in 6 words. Interview problems, need help, see me. I bring to the table over 30 years experience owning my own recruiting firm, where I participated in over 3,000 placements. I've interviewed hundreds of people through my career, both as an owner of my recruiting firm and as a volunteer. When it comes to interview techniques and job search, I can assure you that I could be a valuable resource at no cost to yourself. And as I always say, I'm worth the money. You heard my opener, you heard my proof of my opener, and now I'm going to give you the action statement. Ask me how I make a difference. My name is Les Segarnik. And your action statement, when you give that customized elevator speech to the employer, that's correct. A different elevator speech for every time you sit down at an interview. You're going to set up that speech keeping in mind the elements of the job requirements, which I call the king, and you must feed the king. When it comes to the end of an elevator speech to an employer, you gave him a good opener, you said the body of the speech, you proved it. Guess what the ending is going to be to the employer? Do you feel that my background is a match for the position I'm applying for? Really? It's just like an attorney who knows the answer to a question. We know that's true. And that's the framework I want you to start off with. Hundreds of interviews. What surfaces and hundreds of interviews? Let me tell you the number one thing. My first observation and my first question when sitting and doing a practice interview with somebody: why did you leave your last company? Whether you work for the company for 3 months, for 5 years, for 22 years, the answer is virtually the same. The answer is in 1 or 2 sentences or just a few words. For example, I was involved in a layoff. How could you work for any length of time for a company and not talk about your accomplishments, your achievements, geared towards the king, the job requirements? How could you just let go that you had promotions while you were there, well-deserved promotions, how you got along with management, how you got along with your coworkers? And yes, now's the time to tell them, I was involved in reduction in force, the company, whatever, went out of business, the company moved to another state, it doesn't matter. And then end it with, and of course I come with good references. It's my opinion, you have to set the stage continuously throughout the interview, putting yourself into a positive light. But more importantly, I want you to be memorable. I want you to walk away from that interview where the interviewer is going to say, this is my gal or this is my guy. Very important, you leave a memory rather than what the other 4, 5, or 7 people said, I was involved in a layoff. You should be prepared to talk about 5 strengths, once again, that pertain to the job requirements. It should be scripted in advance. And you should be prepared to talk about 1 or 2 weaknesses. This is not confession time when you're in front of an employer. You're not to talk about your relationships, your sick dog. That has nothing to do with business. Either use the one I always talk about as an illustration. I find it difficult to talk in front of large and small groups. I decided to do something about it. I joined Toastmasters. After 3 months, I no longer have that problem. Come up with a business-related weakness, state the weakness, and how you overcame the weakness. That's how you handle the weakness. Lou Adler, a trainer of trainers, trains C-level people to hire, trains human resources how to hire, recruiters such as myself, came up with the MIQ, the most important question. What is the most significant accomplishment so far in your career? And he helps us answer that question with a mnemonic called SMARTY, which is very similar to STAR. I need you to prepare in advance and script 5 accomplishments, with the first one being your most significant. And again, we must feed the king, base them on the job requirements. SMARTY, significant task. M, metrics. Whenever you are talking about your accomplishments, your achievements, to the best of your ability, use metrics. Percentage increases, dollar increases, growth of territory with the number of counts you grew it with. A, actions taken and what your role was in those actions. There's 2 T's in SMARTY. Before we get to the T, let's take care of the R. The R is results. The first T in SMARTY is time. When did it happen? How long did it take? The second T in SMARTY is team. Did you pick the team? Were you the team leader? Why did you pick those people? And the E stands for a great deal. Environment, pace, resources, and what did the boss think about the results? Why does Lou give you this type of information when creating accomplishments and achievements? So it will make it difficult for the interviewer to drill down any further. You gave them a complete story. You're not happy with how the interview went? Ask yourself, how many hours did you practice? I always say you practice in front of a mirror. You practice with a tape recorder. You practice with your friends, your neighbors, your relatives. In fact, you should practice so much that when your friends see you on the street, they run in the opposite direction. I always joke about this, but I'm extremely serious. The reason being, interviewers expect you to know the answers to the questions. They expect it. So practice those questions. They're available all over town. I need you to get out of your comfort zone. Your comfort zone, understand, puts you into 2 new roles that you've never had before when in job search. Perhaps some of you had this. Perhaps some of you were in sales. I need you to become a salesperson and be able to sell yourself like a commodity. And also, you have to be in show business. You always wanted to be in show business? This is your chance. I ask you to script the answers, practice the answers, and then I want you to go in front of your audience, the interviewer, and win that Globe or Emmy or Oscar, and get yourself in the first two positions of who's being considered for that position. To step out of your comfort zone, I'm going to ask you to do something most of you have never done. I want you to ask the employer for the job when that interview is over. I want you to sit back and say to yourself, this is going well. I like the research I've done. I like what I heard. I seem to get along very well with the employer. Do you think because you're nodding your head and he's nodding his head or her head in a positive fashion that they know you want the job? They don't. There's no such thing as brainwaves going across the desk that's between you and the other person. I'll give you what I consider the number one way of asking for the job. It fits many personalities. I would be honored to join your company should you make me an offer. Or I would be honored to join your team should you make me an offer. It fits many personalities, and the reason I bring it to the forefront now is because people who I've asked to use that have done that, have come back and told me, they thank me for saying it. That's good enough for me. A thank you is very rare in the world of interviewing. I need you to customize everything. Your resume, your cover letter, your elevator speech, the answer to why should I hire you, your strengths, your accomplishments, your achievements. Customize all the things I just said for the job requirements. I'm asking you to Google job interview questions and answers. It'll come up with the 50 to 100 common interview questions and answers. And then I want you to Google employment interview questions and answers and put in your job title. That's going to give you specific questions about your background. When I do a customized practice interview, I can't be a volunteer coordinator or a human resources director. I can't be a scrum master. But I can be once I Google that. And I assure you, the response I get, including what a workout you gave me, or these are questions I haven't thought about in years, all good. Is it a duplicate of the interview you're having? I wish it was so. But I assure you, it warms you up. You're ready for battle after this. It takes a lot of the sting out of the interview when you have a practice interview. Why should I hire you, or why are you the ideal candidate? How could you walk into an interview without having this preparation? How could you convince the interviewer that you could do the job and do it well without sitting down and putting on the left-hand side of the page the job requirements in bullet form, on the right-hand side of the page, put in how your work-related experience matches those job requirements. Job requirements have always been written in the order of the pain that the company has. Let's use the number 10. So the first 5 of these 10 is where most of the pain is with the company. They need someone to help them succeed and take care of those problems. Well, this is what I need you to do. All 10, you answer them with work-related experiences or transferable skills. But when asked the question, why are you the ideal candidate, or why should I hire you? I want you to use only work-related skills. You will have a chance later to, believe me, to bring up those transferable skills. And I want you to get into the best positioning possible by only talking about work-related skills. Why should I hire you? Tell me about yourself. That dates back to prehistoric times as far as interview questions. And I assure you, I've checked what's current in interview questions ever since I've been in this business. It's still being talked about. It's still being written about. So don't take it for granted. Make sure you practice that answer, and it'll help you immensely in going through the interview. Ask yourself, what can I do to help the employer succeed? There's only one reason you're being hired. It's the golden triangle. Not for your good looks, but because you make money for your company, you save money for your company, and you save them time. Can you think of a better reason of being hired? This is what it's all about. You walk into the interviewing room. You have, let's see, you're dressed for success. The men didn't bathe in Old Spice that morning. You kept the bling down. Oh, good eye contact. Firm handshake. You didn't break the person's hand when you shook it. Good for you. But you look like I do. You don't smile. My wife always says I look like I'm sucking a lemon. I never smile. And my response to her is, I'm not looking for a job. I don't have to smile anymore. You don't have any choice. Look, I know there are many people like me, but you must have trigger points when it comes to smiling. When you walk in the room, when you leave the room, no brainer. When you talk about your strengths, achievements, and accomplishments, crack your lips a little bit. I'm not asking you, for those who remember howdy doody, I'm not asking you to be howdy doody, but I'm asking you to use those trigger points so that first impression, how long does it take? A nanosecond? 5 seconds for first impression? You could overcome it and have the person who's interviewing with you think that you are part of his team. This is the culture part of the interview. That stupid little smile. And let me talk to you one more step about that smile. Several years ago, 100 Fortune 500 in-house recruiters sat down at 10 tables and they asked them the same question. Why do you hire the person you hire? I wrote down all 15 answers. And one of the 15 answers was, we look for the candidate to smile. Wow. So I didn't fall out of bed this morning and come up with that. This is the facts of life. At this point, I can talk to you about many other topics. Instead, I'm going to open up the room to questions. Who's the first person going to be in the hot seat? Uh-oh. No questions?
How about a comment?
Go ahead.
I've used your suggestion less about, I would be honored to join your company if I were to, okay, and it works. I've used it a couple of times. It works. It seems to be the icing on the cake. I would venture to say most candidates don't say that at the end, but it works. So
Thank you. Let me stretch that one more time. I own my recruiting firm for 33 years. I trained my recruiters the same way I'm speaking to you now. How to prep the candidate for the interview. We always talked about make sure if you want that job to ask for the job. I would hear during the course of a week 1 or 2 comments from my recruiters saying, what do you know, it worked again. Or the offer was between 2 people less. When I debriefed the company, they said to me, George was the one that asked for the job. I gave it to George. Again, step out of your comfort zone and please ask them for the job. Thank you for your time. I truly appreciate it. and I hope I've been of some service.
It's a quick question. How have you, you've seen things change over the 33 years. How is social media now? Can you speak to that briefly in terms of how to maximize leveraging social media in the process to get these interviews?
It's truly not my forte. However, I will make some comments about it. LinkedIn is supposed to be the first source for recruiters and employers to go to before they go into any other source, their database, their contacts, and so forth. First one. I'll give a plug to Lynn. If you haven't attended her sessions on how to build that profile, how to work and strategize using LinkedIn in your job search, please do so. There are other elements in social media today, including Craigslist. I couldn't believe it when I heard there are job openings on Craigslist. All the large Monster, Indeed, ZipRecruiter websites. But I go back on those areas to the 5% rule. 5% of those jobs are found online through the big boards and company websites. Limit how much time you spend using it.
Can you talk about following up after the interview? Like how often,
I'll give you two different scenarios on it. Quite often I hear, when I attend and even facilitate career success groups, I hear that they forgot to send a thank you email after the interview. A few days, sometimes a week or two before they do it. A job interview is not like planting a seed in the ground that's going to germinate and sprout. You have to be proactive with the job after the job interview as you were before going in there. Which means to me, the moment you get to your computer, you bang out a thank you email. For those of you not familiar with an informational gift that should be sent along with the thank you email, please get familiar with it now. While researching your company, you come across a link that either talks about a competitor of the company or says something positive about them. And this is the link you should be including in your thank you email. You should reference at least 2 highlights of your interview that makes you look good. And if you ask for the job, you should reiterate you want that job. If you did, you should talk about wanting to proceed further in the interview process and to be brought back again. Now, let's look at the timetable, quote unquote, that's given by the employer. Well, we expect to come to a decision in about 2 weeks. I don't want you to wish and hope over those 2 weeks period. I want you to take action. The action I always think about is sending them an email, and it's done in 2 steps. We talk about, we'll come to a decision in 2 weeks. 7 or 8 business days, shoot them an email with another informational gift. Tell them how excited you are about the position you interviewed at. You're ready to come back for another interview, or you're ready to start the position. I would do that. I would also, if you don't hear after that email, wait 2 business days and make that phone call with the same information. If you get a human, fine. If you get answering a voicemail, same script that you want the job. And then I want you to do something that's very difficult. I want you to put it, the whole package in your desk and close up your desk. It's either going to happen after that or it's not. And I don't want you to be bogged down by waiting for the so-called answer on a timetable that's not yours, it's theirs. Anything else?
Just, you you mentioned thank you notes. Do you have any preference on whether people, do you think it makes a difference whether it's handwritten versus penmanship aside versus an email?
This is the controversy, I guess, of the ages in my own mind. 21st century to me is email. I don't want you to go to Hallmark and send them a card. I don't want you to send them a handwritten letter. However, I like peace with the people I talk to. Shoot them out an email, you feel it's necessary, shoot them out a handwritten letter also, excuse me, a typed letter also. Cover both bases. My opinion, actions speak louder than words, and action is email. Roy?
So listen, I'm finding a lot of times the first part of the process is you have a telephone screen, a telephone interview with somebody from HR. Even if it's a face-to-face with somebody from HR, I frequently find these people have very little knowledge of the position or of the area that that position covers. And I guess I struggle to kind of strike the balance between not being condescending and talking down to them, and then not just overwhelming them with lots of terminology and things that they're just clueless about. So do you have any advice as to how to kind of thread that needle?
The best advice I can give you is always respect human resources. They love their territory and they protect their territory. You can't do anything but the right thing with them. And the bottom line is, no, you can't be condescending. No, you cannot overtalk them, but you should look for a face-to-face interview by asking for it. That's my opinion.
I love your advice about asking for the job. When in the process of your screenings, your second screening, interview, face-to-face, when's the appropriate time to ask?
Great question. At the end of an interview, first interview, second interview, panel interviews, I really don't care. I want you to get asked for the business card. I want you to thank them for their time. I want you to say, based upon what I heard in my discussion with the last 3 interviews, should you offer me this position, I'll be on board in 24 hours. Always ask for the job. There isn't a sales rep that's worth their salt that doesn't ask for the business. I ask you to be a sales rep.
With
Thank you again.
Les, thank you so much for your time.